What is up, folks? TravisTCG here, back from an RCQ in Manchester, where I ended up playing Dredge. What happened is I was playing with Dredge and Explorer last week, and I was quite impressed with a few different cards, some new additions. So I was like, well, there's no price amalgam in that format, there's no time scale in that format, we've got a bunch more cards in actual Pioneer. I think the deck's pretty strong, let me just tinker around a little bit. And I came up with a list I was very, very happy with. It's very strong, it does some very, very powerful things, and you can put a bunch of power onto play very, very quickly. At the mercy of what comes off the top of your deck. The downside, I would say, to playing Dredge of the format as it is a minute, is that obviously Greasefang is still very, very popular, one of the top decks, and so people are packing Graveyard Hit anyway. We mitigate that a little bit in the sideboard, and you kind of have to try and account for it. But your main aim is to try and win game one, and then kind of steal one of games 2 and 3. By having a little bit of sideboard interaction to deal with what they're bringing in for you. Alright, let's get into the deck. So let's start with enablers. We have 4 copies of Stitcher Supply, obviously ETB mill 3, when it dies mill 3. So we have 4 Otherworldly Journey, which let you find lands among other things, but it gives you something you can do at instant speed. Otherworldly Gaze, you can recycle from the graveyard, which is great if you mill it off to something else. And yeah, some card selection is actually super, super handy because we're not playing very many lands. Tome Scour, a classic, just hey, mill myself a 5. It is the most cards you're going to get on turn 1 into your graveyard. And then we have 4 copies of Breaking and Entering. This is the big hit. You're going to put the top 8 cards of your library into the graveyard, and then hopefully you hit enough, you hit a pile of stuff. Now, it's important, because apart from the Stitcher Suppliers, these 3 cards all interact really, really well with one of the new additions to the deck. The new card here is Founding the Third Path. 4 copies. So this is a read ahead saga. And the first mode says you may cast a spell or you can cast an instant sorcery spell with mana value 1 or 2 from your hand without paying its mana cost. And note it says spell and not card. So for breaking, the spell is 2 mana, even if the card's mana value is 8. And this is important because of the back half as well. So you're playing Founding the Third Path, and then you can cast any of these that you have in hand for free. The second mode, target player mills 4 cards, obviously we're targeting ourselves, and you can just play it on 2 if you don't have one of these to cast for the first half. And then the third mode is exile target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard, copy it, and you may cast the copy. And actually, you exile a target card, and then you can cast it using, again, you can breaking for 2 mana. So in theory, right, you're going, okay, I'm going to play this, cast breaking off of it, mill you for 8, then you're going to mill yourself for 4, well, yeah, mill yourself for 8, and then 4, and then 8 again. But obviously you have to pay the mana off the back half. Similarly here, it lets you kind of quote unquote snapcast to mage back your Tome Scour. Obviously it makes Otherworldly Journey cheaper, and it also interacts pretty well with some of the cards in the deck. But this is a new addition. It gives you a bit more durability, and especially with one of the other cards we're playing, can give you a lot of reach. So those are your enablers, the cards you want to get cards into the graveyard. So then, obviously, if you've got enablers, what are the payoffs? Now, the first thing, Creeping Chill, 4 copies. When it's put from your deck into the graveyard, drain your opponent for 3 and exile it. Prized Amalgam, when you bring when a creature comes from your graveyard to the battlefield, and then a turn and bring Prized Amalgam back. And then to trigger that and enable that, we have 4 copies of Narcomoeba, 4 copies of Silvermote Ghoul, and 4 copies of Haunted Dead. Narcomoeba, very simple. If you mill it, it comes back to play, triggers your Prized Amalgam. Great, excellent. Silvermote Ghoul comes back at the end of the turn if you gain 3 or more life. Hey, how are we doing that? Well, number 1 is Creeping Chill, right? But we have another way to trigger it. I'll put these here. Haunting Dead, against slower decks, like black-red, like blue-white control, you can really grind your opponents out with this because it's a very, very hard card to deal with, especially if you can chain one with another one. Often, if you just recur this a couple of times, they just can't deal with the power with a few creatures that keep going back. And obviously, in combination with Prized Amalgam, obviously, it's a ton of power very, very quickly. And it's a nice way to be able to dump cards from your hand, whether that be Silvermote Ghoul, Amalgam, or spare copies of Creeping Chill. Bear in mind, there are situations where you're casting Creeping Chill for 4 mana from your hand to trigger Silvermote Ghouls in your graveyard. But, like I said, there's one more card that interacts well with Silvermote Ghoul, and it's actually the card that also interacts well with Founding the Third Path. Silvermote Ghoul says, when you gain 3 life, bring it back. Now, some versions of Pioneer or Explorer Dredge, I've got these cards off camera. Hey, look, Founding the Third Path, Silvermote Ghoul. Some versions of Dredge have played like the learn spell. It's like gain 4 life, learn, and like that triggers this, and that's pretty cool. But the innovation that I've kind of like made here is I'm playing Founding the Third Path with Sovereign's Bite. Now, Sovereign's Bite, very simple. Target player loses 3 life, gain 3 life. 3 life. Hey, look. We got our Silvermine Ghouls back. But then also, because we can cast it off of both sides of Founding the Third Path, the real upside is that once you cast it and it's in your graveyard, you can bring it back with the Exile ability on Founding the Third Path and cast it again. And you can actually really, really burn your opponent out very, very quickly, especially in combination with Creeping Chill, which you already have. And it gives you kind of a reach game plan that also synergizes really, really well with your kind of creature base and like recursion strategy. Now, into the mana, very simple. 4 Watery Grave, 4 Clearwater Pathway, 4 mismatched Underground Rivers, and then I'm playing 2 islands and a single swamp with a Otawara. Now, the Otawara is actually one of the few ways you have of interacting with Rest in Peace, and there's a couple of other troublesome permanents, things like Unlicensed Hearse. And so we're going to get into the sideboard to see like how we're actually dealing with Graveyard Hate. Your main things like, right, okay, you can't beat a Rest in Peace. And so we have 4 copies of Thoughtseize and 4 copies of Spell Pierce to help deal with that kind of thing. And obviously Thoughtseize helps deal with all kinds of Graveyard Hate, whether that be something like Scavenging Ooze, you can take it early, Hidetsugu's right, and then also like the need to exiles creatures when they die from the battlefield. I had a fun one where I won through a counter test, but that was because I'm breaking through 3 copies of Creeping Chill to dome them for 9. But hey. Rest in Peace is a must answer. This is kind of like your primary like anti-hate package. And so they deal with some of the more troublesome spells. Then you have a couple of removal spells to deal with some creatures, like Scavenging Ooze, that kind of thing. 2 copies of Fatal Push and 1 copy of Murderous Cut. Obviously, Delve, you have a bunch of cards in your graveyards to, at least to start with, and then kill something. There are other matchups where you want to play this. The Murderous Cut is awkward. You could play a different card. So obviously, once they've exiled your graveyard, or have a way to start exiling cards, it is harder to cast. The thing is that the deck actually does a very good job of doing its thing quickly. It's very consistent. You have a lot of enablers. A lot of the slower types of hate you can kind of play through. It's the things that completely nuke you, like Rest in Peace, that are a problem. So yeah, 2 Fatal Push, 1 Murderous Cut, and then our own kind of, hey, we need to intro. There are some decks that are a bit faster than us, and so we have 4 copies of Leyline of the Void. And that's it. Like, a couple of new innovations. I really, really like how the deck plays now, with Founding the Third Path, and with, like Founding plus Breaking is obviously the nuts. Breaking is great by itself. All the individual cards, you have enough enablers that you to be like super, super consistent. But it's still a case of, what am I going to hit off the top of my library? What am I going to hit? Creeping Chill? Am I going to hit all the enablers? Sometimes you just mill the wrong cards. Sometimes you draw the wrong cards. There are some particularly good matchups. And again, I think that the deck is durable to versus like some of the weaker forms of hate. Even like Hidetsugu's Second Right. If it's a one-time effect to exile your graveyard, the deck's really, really good at rebuilding. You have so many enablers and so many ways to kind of like put cards back in. Something like Unlicensed Hearse is a bit more problematic. Obviously in blue-black, you don't necessarily have the best answers for artifacts. But again, there are some things you can do to play around it. Another nice thing about Otherworldly Journeys is to help you find your sideboard cards. But yeah, I think the deck's very, very strong. If you're looking for a Dredge list for Pioneer, then I definitely try this out. If you're looking to, I would say, if you're looking to win or spike a tournament, it might not be the thing for you. But if it's something, if you're like, oh, I want to play Pioneer FNM, or you want to like have a crack at something, then I would definitely recommend it. It's very, very powerful. You get to do some crazy, crazy things. Like I said, I flipped 3 Creeping Chills off of a Breaking earlier. It was pretty nuts. And hey, you can like have some incredible plays where incredible turns where you just have like 15 power on the board on turn 2. Which, you know, you can't really deal with that. So, hey, check that out. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel. I occasionally do IRL deck decks like this, but predominantly do, like, Explorer gameplay, as Explorer and Pioneer get closer together. We don't have Prized Amalgam in Explorer yet, but I'm hoping we get it in Shadows Remastered, which is coming out sometime next year. Other than that, take care, have a great day, thanks for watching the video, peace out.